I said, well, that's not exactly what I had in mind. I was thinking something like an impromptu speech. But Margaret reminds me that every now and then we have to make a decision. We have to stand up sometimes on our own 2 feet. We have to stand up for ourselves. We have to stand up for a cause. We have to stand up in the name of love. As Unitarian Universalists, we definitely know how to take a stand. But many of us understand the complexities in the world, that there's a big shade of gray. And so if we stand up, we want to make sure that we're not going to make a fool of ourselves. Standing certainly means choosing a side. And a lot of us don't like that, because we see the world being the way it is, from people choosing sides. The world is bruised and all torn into dichotomies and false dichotomies because people are choosing sides. Let's find the middle path, a higher level of consciousness, we might say. But sometimes we have to choose a side. Sometimes when we decide to participate in life, we have to say, this is the side that I'm on. And so this morning we are choosing to stand on the side of love and justice. I have a litmus test for when I decide to stand. Does my stance lift up the worth and dignity of all? Does my choice to stand embrace or erase? Does my choice to stand eventually lead us to beloved community? Does it eventually lead us to uniting, or does it tear us apart? Does my choice to stand recognize the God in others, the namaste in others? I ask myself these questions when I decide to take a stand. Sometimes we have to stand up for the marginalized, the underrepresented, and oppressed, rallying and publicly advocating against unjust laws, that they might be amended or even eliminated. This is a part of our duty, I think, as people of faith. You know, through my work and studies, as I think about the same-sex marriage debate, it has quite often occurred to me that just because some things are legal do not make them moral or ethical. Just because some things are legal do not make them moral or ethical. Slavery was legal at one point. Hello. To stand against it meant you were breaking the law. Now that sounds crazy for us today, but it's true. And so sometimes we have to stand up and go against the grain and go against the norm so that the circle of privilege can be widened and shared by more. Then there are repercussions that come about as a result of not standing up for justice. Historical happenings that have been the result of our acquiescence. If I might slightly digress, in the African American history class that I'm teaching, we've been looking at early America. And in early America, Virginia specifically, when the immigrants from England and even Africa came over to the New World, they were all indentured servants. This was before the transatlantic slave trade. As long as they professed when they got to Virginia that they were Christians, they were each promised, black and white alike, land and other things if they worked for 7 years as indentured servants. This was around the 1600s. But as time passed and the labor force changed, the law changed to reconcile what had become a lack of workers in early America. At first, as long as you were Christian, you were okay. But by 1705, about 100 years later, the laws of Virginia were amended, the Virginia Assembly General Assembly wrote these words in 1705. All servants imported and brought into the country who were not Christians in their native country shall be accounted and be slaves. All Negro, mulatto, and Indian slaves within this dominion shall be held to be real estate. If any slave resists his master, correcting such slave, and shall happen to be killed in such correction, the master shall be free of all punishment, as if such accident never happened. That was the law. Now, there's lots of details why this happened. You have to come to my class if you want to get the details. But we were now, as Americans, going to be defined by this decision. We were now going to be a country defined by slavery, a country defined by black and white. This unethical, immoral law in 1705 still lives with us. The ramifications of it, that is. It lived in the Dred Scott case. It lived and created the Civil War. It lived during Jim Crow. It lived in Brown versus Board of Education. Lived during the Voting Rights Act. Lived during the Civil Rights Movement. This law has lived and shaped American history as we know it. But thank God for those who over the years stood up on their own 2 feet and said, this is not right. Those who stood up and made the apathetic, empathetic. Those who made that which was lawful, unlawful. And we still live with the vestiges of this very bad decision in 1705. From folk taking too long to stand up. Folk who lived too long with fear. But I believe we're moving onward and upward. And one day, hopefully sooner than later, we will truly become heir to the Star Trek generation, the United Nations world. See, it's clear to me, when looking at history and the legal system, why standing up is necessary at times. It's clear to me that standing up for those who are of the same sex and desire marriage, it's a no-brainer to me. It's clear to me why the unethical laws that say homosexual marriage is wrong need to be amended, and it should not take 300 years if enough of us stand up. And so on this very special Standing on the Side of Love and Justice Sunday, where we are reimagining Valentine's Day, we're encouraging all of you to fill out a card, a red card. We have 500. And a group of us are going to take those cards to your delegates and your senators. And we're going to let them know that we will not stand for unjust laws in the Maryland Constitution. We recognize the power that law has and the ramifications when we don't act. John Donne said, "No person is an island unto itself. Every person is a piece of the continent, a part of the main." We're all in this together. Don't make no mistake about it. We are inseparably united in this cause, and we go up and we either go down together. And then one of the great hymns of our tradition reminds me that I cannot see another person's woe and not be in sorrow too. Can I see another's grief and not seek for kind relief? Can I see a falling tear and not feel my sorrow share? No, no, never can it be. Never, never can it be. And if you don't like those two quotes, how about Sly and the Family Stone? Stand.